You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 193 with Nate Lind. Have you ever considered being a legendary man? Today we're going to talk about what that is and what it might mean to you.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What is going on, Men of Abundance? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community. As always and as usual, I am excited to be with you here today, and I am glad you're here. If you are brand new to listening to Men of Abundance, this is one of the first episodes you've listened to. I want to welcome you to this community, to this tribe of men. And there are many ladies out there listening as well. Ladies, I truly appreciate you listening as well. You know, I say this often, but I truly can't say it enough how grateful that I am and how honored and humbled I am that so many people are listening to these conversations, getting a little bit out of each and every conversation, and then applying that somehow into your daily activities, into your mindset, into your thought process. Something you're using here at Men of Abundance is in some way, shape, or form affecting your life in a positive manner. That's my goal, that's my hopes, and I'm just really amazed at how many people are giving me some amazing feedback, sharing their little story with me and about what the conversations are doing for them, and then that you're sharing Men of Abundance with other people. That's really what this is all about. You know, they say knowledge is power, but that is incorrect. Knowledge is only power when it's shared. If you're keeping knowledge to yourself, it's only good for you, but it really makes a big difference when you share that information, that knowledge with other people. And that's what I'm hoping that you're doing. If somebody shared Men of Abundance with you, thank them. And then pay it forward by sharing Men of Abundance with somebody else. I assure you, they will come back and thank you. Now, I want to get right into today's conversation because our conversation is a little bit long, but, you know, I let these conversations go as long as they need to. And they don't get drawn out. They're not just long, drawn-out conversations that, end up being something boring. That's my thought process anyway, and that's the way I feel about it. But this is a really good conversation, so I really want to get right into it. But before I even introduce our featured guest today, Nate Lind, to you, I want to mention that he has contacted me before I got an opportunity to do the pre-show and share this conversation with you. He has shared with me that he has an event coming up, and you'll hear us talk a little bit about AdSUN in our conversation. But I want to direct you to a link in menofabundance.com/193 where you are going to be able to register for an event being held for entrepreneurs in Key West. Now, this event is May 3rd through the 5th, and I would certainly be there if I was going to be in Florida because May 5th is my birthday. And that would be an amazing way to celebrate my birthday with a bunch of other entrepreneurs in Key West, of all places, which would be really cool. But don't let that stop you. I say go register for that event. Go out there. It is a free event for entrepreneurs that you can go hang out with Nate and many other entrepreneurs out in Key West. So go to menofabundance.com/193 and click on the link and get registered for this event. I'm absolutely positive it's going to be one hell of an experience. And for you business owners and advertisers out there, Nate has also offered a week free access to Continuity U. That's one of his websites where you can go and discover the common principles and best practices of being an advertiser in only 8 modules. He's got these modules set up over there where you're going to learn step-by-step process. used in launching campaigns successfully, learn essentials, to building your first online campaign for digital and physical products, and much more. Go over there and check that out. If you're a business owner or you're a marketer of any sort, you do any sort of advertising, it's always important to get more information. Tons of information. I'm telling you, I've got so much information myself on my platform, but I want you to go check out what Nate has going on and get that free access, that week free access to Continuity U. You can do that at menofabundance.com/193. There's a link over there, Continuity U, where you can get that free week access. Now I'm going to introduce you to Nate, our featured guest today, but I'm really going to sum up his bio as it's very long and extensive. Amazing stuff Nate has done throughout his life, and all of that is listed at menofabundance.com/193 in the show notes. But the bottom line is this: Nate is an entrepreneur at heart. He has done some amazing things in the entrepreneurial world. He started out as in real estate and flipping houses, was doing very well. Of course, 2008 got him just like it did pretty much everybody else, at which time he went into the corporate world. And he was doing everything from leading projects at the world's largest financial institutes like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And by 2011, he was recruited to Bank of America as a vice president. Even though Nate had tasted wealth and married, he found a deep sense of emptiness in his own purpose outside of his family. As he began looking for opportunities to fill that emptiness, he discovered men's grooming products such as beard oil and a unique brotherhood like none other. Lind introduced his first proprietary beard oil product and watched every aspect of his life start to improve. During this time, he found himself at the center of a group of online entrepreneurs. So in keeping with the community building spirit that has been part of his life from early on, he launched a conference of like-minded entrepreneurs. The launch was such a huge success. His show AdSUN is held every year in December in Aspen, Colorado. Men of Abundance, it is my honor to introduce you to Nate Lind. Nate, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome this morning. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Where are you at in the world?
I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Well, technically, I'm in Rio Rancho, a suburb of Albuquerque.
Rio Rancho. I saw that on your Skype. It said what your location was. And Albuquerque. I love New Mexico, man. I spent some time down in El Paso, about 4 years, and we used to go to down to Albuquerque, all over New Mexico. I love the the hot air balloon festival out there. Just a beautiful place to be, man.
Yeah, we actually sponsored a balloon this last year. It was really fun. We got to go up every day, and you have to get there super early in the morning. It's freezing cold, but it's just an amazing time. We were doing, we created this fun little event. It was the only floating treasure chest in the world, and we were doing these kind of treasure chest, treasure hunt type events every morning where we were handing out gifts to folks, and literally we're having people following us and like searching for our balloon and driving around and trying to locate us as we were landing and come and come get some treasure from us. It was really cool.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It is unbelievable watching those balloons inflate, and they're just so huge. It's ridiculous how big those things are, and then when they're coming back down and they're deflating, what an amazing sight. It's just amazing.
It's really fun. We're blessed here in the Albuquerque area to have the perfect weather the weather environment for what they call the box, and so balloons that are able to ascend and then hit a different wind stream and then descend and kind of move back and forth. So they're always doing this kind of a circular box-like motion. And it's a ballooner's paradise. It's a really cool thing that we really enjoy. And Albuquerque is a beautiful place. A lot of people, they don't even think about it. It's not even on their map as to places to visit. And that's too bad, because it's a beautiful place to live and to visit.
It truly is. And guys, if you ever want any trivia on one of the locations it's in New Mexico, look up Truth and Consequences. Truth or Truth and Consequences. I'm not going to get into
Consequences.
Truth or Consequences. Yeah. Great backstory on how that little area got its name. So look that up. I might even throw it in the show notes. We'll see. But I learned that when I was down in that area. Hey, before we get too much into the show, Nate, I really like to start out the same way I started out my morning just this morning, which is with an attitude of gratitude. What do you have to be grateful for today, man?
I'm most grateful for my wife. She's been with me for over a dozen years, and seeing things go up and down, and she stuck with me through thick and thin, and I just love her to death, and really have an abundant amount of gratitude towards her.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. For my wife, that is. 25 years. December 14th, man, and she stuck through me through my military career, and at the same time, imagine this: military career on top of my entrepreneurial desires, and being gone, spending money, doing this, taking courses. I mean, it's hard enough just for the spouse of an entrepreneur, but add the military aspect on top of that. Goodness gracious, That woman's strong, man.
Yep, I'm the son of an Army colonel, so I know about the military. My wife actually was in the military too when we were first dating, and later got out. So I've been steeped in military my entire life.
So you know what I'm talking about, man. Absolutely. And you're on the other end of that, like my three boys. Absolutely, man. So, Nate, how would you describe yourself?
I think if I had to describe myself in one word, it would be curiosity, or curious. I've always been a big proponent of just asking questions and wondering why, and what's the point, what's the purpose, and then also I think I've really found that vulnerability and leading through my failures in many instances, and being willing to share what I've screwed up on, what I've not, things that I can learn from that come from that, has actually really, I think, set me apart from, the average person out there that's so concerned about, sharing anything that might be perceived as a weakness. I found that, leading with, your own stories and with your own personal, challenges, even more so than your own triumphs, has really built a community around me that, I really just, I love, and I love giving to them, and I love providing value, and just sharing, stuff that's not been working for me, and things that have been working for me, and that has really paid itself back in spades. So that's, kind of a short way, that's how I would describe myself, is very much giving, and kind of taking that idea of many of the great entrepreneurs of the past is give before you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And that curiosity as young men, I'm thinking about myself. I was very curious, and you said question everything, and you're always questioning things. And I always questioned things. And like, I think about myself, and I think about my boys as they're going through this right now. Questioning this, certain things in the classroom, for instance, or questioning adults. And some adults don't take that very kindly. When a young man is questioning them, it's like they're questioning their authority. But then the other part that I love about that really does set you apart, is that you're able to look at where your shortcomings were at and reveal those, and not hide them, but actually bring them out. And now you've got a group of men, you've got a group of mastermind that you're putting together. We're going to get more into that in a minute. But The importance of this, guys, and the importance of that message, and the reason why I highlight on that is, number one, be curious. Always explore. Always experience new things. I have right here in front of me, collect moments, not things, not stuff. Collect experiences, not stuff. Yeah. And then when you fail, man, sit down with somebody and have a conversation about that. And that's where the wisdom comes from. That's where you start learning. I just had actually posted this on my Pay It Forward Aloha Friday about how to gain that wisdom. Can you elaborate on that a little more, Nate?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think before, like, even going into a conversation with somebody else, I've got a series of I've got legends, is a word. It's something we all, maybe deep down inside aspire to be one day. And, we have stories of people that are legends, and, we really hold either them in high esteem and in high status. And, I have an acronym I use as a device for legends, and it's learn yourself, for L, exercise aggressively, for E, grow your tribe, for G, express your passion, for the next E, navigate confidently, destroy limitations, and share treasure. And those are some things that are really important to me, that you can really express those aspects of life at any point in time. And when you're having those conversations where you're sitting down, you want some wisdom from other men in your life. That first one that's super important is you really need to learn yourself. And it's there's a really important aspect of self-reflection and being present and helping yourself so that you can help others. So those are it's the first place to kind of start with that, which is just really where I like to go with it. And then as you're moving yourself into how you can express yourself in physically, exercising aggressively is a huge piece of that, because there's a balance between your internal and your external, which if you spend that time working on it and valuing yourself, you'll be able to express stronger internal and and externally, which is super important for us as guys. A lot of our validation and our self-respect or our self-love comes from our internal strength and also our external strength. And that gives you a really cool opportunity to take yourself and use yourself as a vehicle for adventure. And working with friends and family and creating experiences and those moments that you were talking about just a little while ago, Wally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I had never, as I've been following you even on Facebook for a while, I'd never really noticed that you had that acronym until we talked about it this morning with Legends. And that is absolutely brilliant, man. It hits on all the key points of being a man of abundance as well. I absolutely love that. So also you've got another site here, and it's an acronym, AdSUN. What is that all about?
Yeah, so AdSUN is that's my entrepreneurial community. So I started out in my entrepreneurial venture actually many years ago as a real estate entrepreneur, and I flipped 75 houses over the course of about 6-7 years in the Northern Virginia area. Learned a whole lot through that process. I took a short pause, kind of a forced pause, as the real estate market corrected itself in 2008.
Smart
had to
move.
go back. Yeah. Well, didn't really have much of a choice, to be honest.
Exactly.
I didn't want to. But I had to go back to work. So it was kind of I felt like it was a defeat, failure at the time, but I learned so much from it. I had the opportunity to work for some of the world's largest financial institutions, and it was a real blessing in disguise. And it gave me a little bit of a time to, go back out there and figure out, who do I want to be in the world? What do I want to do? And being an entrepreneur is just something that I can't let go of. And so I entered the world of being an entrepreneur again, but this time it was for online e-commerce and online continuity, which is like subscription sales, so selling products direct to consumers. And AdSUN is kind of the penultimate of that. It's the years worth of networking and hard work that I took as I was growing my own network, my company, growing my resources, and I created a trade show for online entrepreneurs, people specifically that sell products direct to consumers, that use online advertising to help them acquire customers. So it started as a longer word. It was Advertiser Summit. And over a period of time, I shortened it to AdSUN. It just has a really cool name for it, and it's really that embodiment of advertising something, and the summit of bringing everybody together, and also achieving the pinnacle of that success.
Man, I like that. Very, very creative. So you kind of alluded to it a little bit there. You had you working up to the crash as you're flipping houses. Then you got into the corporate side for a little while as well, which you didn't really talk about yet, but we're going to get into that here in just a minute because I find that very interesting and relevant to many of the listeners out there. But along the way, it sounds like you had a few, if not one or two, maybe several kick in the gut moments that really took you to your knees. Yeah. And we highlight this here on Men of Abundance just because so many of us we all have these kick in the gut moments, whether it's a death in the family, something at work, the market changes, something happens. It's what you do after that makes us abundant leaders, and it makes us legends, ultimately, at least in our own mind. So I would like for you to share one of those kick in the gut moments with us and really make us feel that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. So in 2008, the housing market was already at that point kind of shaky. So, California, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Florida, so kind of the U-shape, all the sea-facing states and the external part of the U.S. had really experienced a significant amount of appreciation, and that's when you could sit down and you have conversations with your barber, and your barber was talking to you about how he's flipping this house or he's flipping that house, a lot like how Bitcoin is nowadays. Everyone's talking about Bitcoin, and it's right at about those moments when it's seems like time and time again, everything just blows to hell in a handbasket. And it was not too dissimilar for me. So I had already kind of found a niche that I was exploring, and I was buying properties that needed to be fixed up. and I was providing value to the folks that I'm buying those properties from, helping them start a new chapter of their life, and moving into maybe an apartment or a different house or that sort of thing. They had a little bit of equity, so I was able to cash out some of that equity for them so they could move into another stage of their life, and then the house was was left for me to fix it up or wholesale it or flip it, and that's what I would do. And in 2008, the amount of equity that got sucked out of the market, especially in the Northern Virginia area, and this was the same in Las Vegas, even worse in Las Vegas and Phoenix, San Diego. Some of the Californian cities were really devastated. Florida was destroyed from an equity perspective. The business model failed, so there wasn't an opportunity for me to go and work out an arrangement with somebody who had equity in their property and be able to, provide a service for them, make some equity for myself, and then, sell the property to, a single, new single family, and be able to, make that exchange work. So it took a while for me to figure this out too. Like I kept thinking, okay, well, I've been doing this for like 6 years. It's not going to change. I can keep doing this. All I have to do is keep doing the same thing over and over again. Well, I think it's Albert Einstein that coined the term doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. So I was part insane, part not insane.
Aren't most of us?
Exactly. Like I knew what I had been doing before worked, but the market shifted, and what I was doing now wasn't going to keep working. So it really, like that gut check moment was one night. I remember, I've got this. I had at the time, I just bought a house, so I didn't quite time. I sold a bunch of properties, but I didn't quite time the bottom of the market as well as I could have. And I had just bought a house. I've got a son on the way. It's my first child is on the way, and I hadn't really seen any income in about 8 months. And I'm starting to like that calm, silent, stoic like demeanor that that mask that we put on to face the world was starting to like crack. Yeah. And I was really having that like challenge, like internally just recognizing, okay, well, shit, what the hell am I going to do now? And to top it all off, my poor wife just having a regular day, just trying to be supportive, recognizing I'm depressed at this point, and being a shit bear, and just kind of like going through my own kind of reactions at the time, asked me a simple question. You know what that was, Wally?
I have no idea.
How was your day today, sweetie?
Oh, and
simple
that was
question,
it.
Right? That was it. I snapped. I was like, don't ask me about my day today. And like everything that was just like simmering under this mask, under this surface, just went boom. And I erupted on her, totally snapped on her. It's totally uncalled for. I paid for it for years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you will continue paying for it.
Absolutely. And, but what was good about it is that was a gut check for me, and it really recognized that what I'm doing is not working, and I need to do something different. And I reached out to some of my closest buddies, and at the time, a couple of them were going through the same sort of situation themselves and could offer no help. But one of them had already started to make a transition from being an entrepreneur to going and working for somebody, and he recommended I submit my resume, and this is turmoil for me. Like, remember, I haven't worked for somebody in 6 years, and I've got to go and get a resume. Like, what the hell? But I went ahead and did it anyways. I found a resume service. I'll never forget them, resumeedge.com. I don't know if they still exist or not. Free plug for you guys. But I used their service, got my resume all brushed up, and started submitting. I really only submitted to one place. This is where my buddy was working, and he, it turned into an interview, and ended up becoming a contractor for a very large financial institution, one that people see on TV all the time, and turned into kind of a stepping stone for me for the next 2 or 3 years. I went about just like really seeping myself back into corporate life and learning, what it means to be like a financial consultant. Because before, as a employee, before I was a real estate investor, I was doing, websites and that sort of stuff. So it's, very different. And for the next, the rest of 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, for 4 years, I just would hopscotch around to different contracts, and I eventually landed a job at Bank of America as a vice president. and it was a fully remote job. So I got to work from home. I was able to skip all this crazy, nasty commutes I had in the DC area. And for those of you in Atlanta, DC, LA, Chicago, Dallas, some of those big cities, how bad the commute can just suck the life out of you.
Yeah.
And I was able to, move into that position. I had a team of about 20 people. I learned a lot about management, project management, and program management skills from all of that, and started doing some traveling. And it kind of set me in the position where I was able to afford to invest in an online business that later I would end up taking on all the operations and growing to a 9-digit gross revenue company over the course of 6 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. What was that online business?
So it's an online advertising agency. I had several different brands that we would sell products direct to consumers, and then also working with a number of clients directly helping them sell their products. So it's just an online agency called Halo River, and still exists to this day. It's something that I've got a team of people that work with, and they help facilitate that ad agency experience and agency of record for a number of brands that sell products online.
So let's run through that real quick a little bit and highlight a few things for the guys out there. So you start out, even before you were doing real estate, flipping houses, you were building websites.
I was, yeah. I actually got my degree in media art and animation at the Art Institute of Denver, Art Institute of Colorado in Denver. So I had a background in computers, websites, graphic design, animation, video production. That's what I got my degree in.
Right.
And about halfway through that college career, I started to find myself growing more and more interested in the art of the deal, as Trump likes to call it, or like doing business as opposed to doing the actual work and the art and the websites and that sort of stuff. So going through college, I found that I really liked the act of creating and building relationships with people, because that ultimately is what leads to a sale, to a business to business type, sale. And that carried with me into real estate and working directly with people and negotiating and working with folks individually to find win-win solutions for them, something where they would come out on top and I would come out on top. And that experience has continued with me every career move I've made, including going to work back in the corporate America world in the financial sector. Finding I'm trying to create a win for the people that I work for, and what challenges are they having. So so here's what challenges they're experiencing. Let me try to solve those challenges and create a win for them. And then they would create a win for me by giving me different projects and different assignments. And over time I would try different stuff myself, and then that. It took a little bit of a backseat in the online world. It's different from selling something to somebody through a website than it is talking to somebody directly and creating a win for them. So it was much different for me, taking that experience and applying it. But I was able to draw on that website experience and graphics and design and that sort of stuff. All the things my mom thought I wasted my money on when I finished my degree and went into real estate, I got to use again. And that was really fun for a good period of time. And I found that, again, my desire to create relationships and build friendships continue to grow. And then as I would go to trade shows in the online community, the e-commerce community, I would start to build those friendships and those networks. And it would start with the vendors, so the companies that I'm working with and using. And it would work. Then it started to transfer over to my competition. And believe it or not, I became really good friends with a number of my competitors, and that just continued to grow. And over time, that's what led to creating that trade show and the community around AdSUN. And has led to building this mastermind of the elite online entrepreneurs and those who help facilitate that online entrepreneur's journey in the Legends Mastermind.
Yeah, that's all encompassing right there in that abundance mindset. So, and then being a kind of a techie guy and building websites, it's rare that a lot of techie guys really have that trait that you realize that you had, which is, I like the art of the deal. I like talking to people. Had this conversation the other day. We have this A3 Plus with the Arbinger Institute that I'm a facilitator for, where you basically rate people on how they are in the workplace, and one of them is impact on people. And most techie guys don't have a high impact on people. In fact, they have a low impact on people because they don't like talking to people. They like talking to computers and networks and all the languages in the computers. So that's cool that you were able to do that. And then, of course, that trait carries on to damn near everything else that you do. So when you started getting into the real estate, how did you learn that? Was that something that you just kind of learned by trial and error? Did you take a course, or did you hire a mentor or something?
I had a mentor. Yeah. So the kind of a short story behind that is I was maybe one of the disciples of Rich Dad Poor Dad. So Robert Kiyosaki, when that book came out, that was really inspiring for me.
Oh yeah, me too.
And he had a really interesting forum at the time on richdad.com that you could go and meet with other people, and he'd set up the book as I know the whole mechanics of the funnel, the sales funnel, of how it was all set up. The book is the lead gen.
Yeah.
His game is some additional lead gen, a little higher ticket price. And then he had all the seminars and courses and stuff that came on behind that, and coaching. And I went through that. And you know what? It made me millions of dollars. So I never look at someone's business model from a lack of abundance perspective and say, oh, he's just making money off of that or whatever. Well, for me, it's all about what value do I get, and then how does that apply? How does that apply to me? How do I apply that education to myself? But just a quick story: I met a mentor through the richdad.com forums. And it was because of a Cashflow 101 game that he was hosting. And, at this time I'm like 22, kind of a, awkward, gangly kind of tech kid, kind of squishy. I was much heavier back then. And, I came to this guy's house. Basically, they were, throwing this game, this Cashflow 101 game at his house. And I thought to myself, well, I can't show up empty-handed. So I stop at the grocery store and I pick up a 6-pack of Old Dominion root beer. And still some of the best soda I've ever had in my life, or pop for those of you in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So I come to this guy's house and I present my 6-pack of Old Dominion root beer and sit down and for the first time find myself playing this like supercharged version of Monopoly called Cashflow 101. And just developed a relationship with the host of the game. And amongst all of his friends, it was real interesting because amongst all of his friends, and I'm the only stranger that's there, I was the only person willing to partner with him in this game. And, this is fake money. This isn't playing for keeps or anything. And as he was looking for people to partner up with, he would obviously turn to his friends first because that's his tribe. And none of them wanted to. And I was willing to. So it kind of goes back to a G in Legends is grow your tribe. I was looking to expand and grow my tribe, and as was he. And I found that working with individuals that have that type of philosophy really do well together, and those type of partnerships, joint ventures, relationships can be very fruitful. So that was a really big piece for me, was finding that mentor. And he over the years, he's about 10 years older than myself, introduced me to a series of curriculum that was really beneficial for me to go through from a communication perspective. One of them was landmark education and the curriculum for living. There's a series of weekend classes that you can take, and then seminars that you can go to. And it's really about the communication that you have with those that are around you, and also back to L from Legends, learning yourself, really looking at, what's going on inside you, what's going on inside your mind, inside your heart, that you can learn from and be able to communicate in a much more authentic manner with the people around you, which immediately sets you apart from the average person out there who's constantly like withholding or not revealing, or, if they built this shell around them that, they've got this fear. And the internet, I think, is only making that worse. People that have a fear that whatever they say is going to live on the internet forever. And that's true. But at the same time, if you don't express yourself, express your passions, which is another part of Legends, you're just the next person that's spit out of this conveyor belt of conditioning that we grow up in. and you pop down, and then you're conditioned to be an employee, and you're conditioned to get married in your 20s or 30s. You're conditioned to try to get that 3% raise, year after year. And then when you're in your 30s or 40s, you have a midlife crisis because you feel like you've wasted 10, 15, 20 years of your life, and you're left kind of a shell of yourself wondering, well, what do you do next? And you've never spent the time to learn yourself that you don't even know what to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and that's fine for guys who aren't listening to Men of Abundance right now. But those of you who are listening, take heed to what Nate is talking about right now. It's ironic that it's interesting that you just brought up Cash Flow 101, because just last weekend I was out at a coworker's house until almost midnight playing Cash Flow 101. Absolutely love that game. We can get into the whole conversation. It's an excellent game, an excellent learning experience. I have Cash Flow 101, the children's version. I've been playing with my boys for quite some time, but we haven't played in a while because my middle son beats my pants off in Monopoly. So I said, okay, fine, let's get some Cash Flow, but I wanted my little guy to play along too. So we got the child's version. Now it's time for me to get the adult version and start holding my own games, because it's a great networking tool.
Yeah.
So you were able to go build your tribe, grow your tribe through that network, and then you obviously learn a lot through the game as well, on a personal level as well as far as business is concerned. But then you had some actual, and a lot of guys set it up like that. They do it so they can have some actual connections and grow. I dig it, man. That's really cool.
Absolutely. It was really helpful for me to overcome some of the more difficult things to do on your own, and kind of finishing up through the acronyms of legends. Haven't really talked much about, but it's navigating confidently. And there's saying, we've all heard it, fake it till you make it. There's actually a good reason for it. Like there's a science around actually acting as if, living as if what you're trying to accomplish is already certain. That so stepping into the game and acting as if everything you ask for is going to be responded to with an affirmative or with a yes. That's something that did not come natural to me, and I had to work through the psychology of that, over years and years. And the time and place for me to do that was through real estate. When I'm working, with people and approaching them, acting as if they were going to say yes, at the very beginning of my negotiation, whatever that might be. And then taking that and applying that to the dating scene, before I'd met my wife, and like going through the whole dating process, and, showing up with confidence is something that there's not a woman in the world that is not attracted to a man of confidence, and that acting as if is something that, and in fact, there's probably still not a woman in this world that even after they've been married for 15 years is not still attracted to a man of confidence, and showing that, to them, I think is a really key aspect of keeping a marriage healthy and keeping it moving in a strong and powerful way moving forward. So that navigating confidently was a huge piece of it, which leads to the D in Legends is destroying limitations. And that one's particularly difficult because you can either find yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people who are limitations to you, or if that's not the case, you may find that within yourself are limitations that are holding you back. And those are two of the most difficult things to go through alone, and having that tribe with you, and having men of abundance and individuals of confidence that can see your blind spots and help work through that, knowing from a positive perspective what you are trying to bring to the world, and supporting you with that is really helpful, because it's really hard to see your own blind spots, and having them be able to point it out, and not in an incriminating or a hurtful way, but being able to share with you some things that maybe are self-sabotaging that you can't see yourself. And it's absolutely critical that you surround yourself with people that are positive, not pessimists. That's I've read it in a couple of different articles that the wealthy, the rich, the entrepreneurs, men of abundance, whomever it might be, there's one common enemy to positivity and growth, and that's pessimism and negativity. So that's something that's really important to to keep in mind for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Extremely important. And, in order for you to grow, guys, you absolutely have to have that tribe. You have to have that mastermind. You have to have that group of men that are going to be around that have that confidence. And one thing I want to back up on a little bit, just because I know some of the guys that are listening are going, okay, where's he going to come in on this? Because I have this thing that I like to point out about fake it until you make it. which I get the point in that. My point is some people take it too far. Some people think, well, I have to look and act like a millionaire. Let's take, for instance, real estate. In order for people to take me seriously, I have to be driving a Beamer. Or I have to be driving, and that's not I don't want you to go spending money and trying to look like you're a millionaire externally. Agree.
Yeah.
You have to do it. This is faking it until you make it internally in your mind. Yeah. And confidence, excuse me, confidence comes from
within.
From within, but also from taking action. It's not the other way around. You don't gain confidence and then take action. You gain confidence by the actions that you take and succeeding in those small little successes and hanging out with confident, successful men. That's Absolutely. Where the confidence comes from. And I just want to make that clear because I see a lot of people out there, they're buying brand names and they're doing this and they're making it look like they have all this money, and it's a facade, and that's a quick way to get in trouble.
I totally agree. And I could sit here after having put, 7 digits, 8 digits, 9 digits through an agency into other people's pockets, into my pockets. I still drive. You know what? I drove to this interview, came over to my office. I've got a 2001 Lexus LX 470. It's an old, crusty Land Cruiser that I've got big steel bumpers on it. It's lifted. It's supercharged. I bought it for $15,000. It was a $65,000 vehicle when it was brand new. I bought it in 2009, 2010. I buy used cars. I'm absolutely of that same opinion. I read The Millionaire Next Door many years ago.
I was going to bring it up. Absolutely great book. What was the average? You remember what the average vehicle that a millionaire owned in I think it was like 1986 or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember what that was, but the lesson I got from it is never buy anything that's like newer than 3 to 5 years old. Right. And to this day, I've got my nice car is a 2009 Mercedes AMG, and that's a nice ass car. But I bought it only a couple of years ago, and I paid $22,000 for it. That's a $100,000 car that some other joker paid $100,000 for, and it depreciated $80,000 on his watch. And then I bought it, and it still looks awesome. It's mean. It looks nice. It works great. Beautiful. And people still turn their heads at it, and that's not really what I'm about. But it's a nice vehicle, and that's absolutely to your point. Don't fake it till you make it from a perception perspective. It's not about trying to show that perspective to other people. In 95% of all situations, it's to exactly your point, Wally, set yourself up in situations where you can overcome challenges. Those challenges that you overcome build your confidence. That confidence continues to grow. It's just like a video game. Just over and over again, you gain experience points. And over time, that confidence isn't faking it. You live and breathe and you exude that confidence everywhere you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if I remember right, Dr. Stanley, the author of that book, said that it was, and I forget, I'm not sure on the year, 84 or something like that, but it was a Ford F-150, and they were all purchased used. Like you said, they were used. That's why millionaires stay millionaires. They know how to manage their money, and those millionaires, the Kardashians, all those type of folks that you see, millionaires, that's like 0.2% of the population of the millionaires in the United States. Real millionaires are the guys that live right next door to you. You don't even know that they're multimillionaires, have no idea whatsoever. So, brother, we are at a point in the conversation where we are going to pay it forward to our abundant leaders. Ready to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so give men of abundance 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
So I'm going to close in the final letter for legends, share treasure. And if you find that you share yourself with those around you, something that's important, your time, a gift of money, or some token of importance from you, an act of service, or words of affirmation or some encouragement, give without asking for anything in return. That is so powerful. And the sense of satisfaction you get from it is so tremendous. And on the flip side, when you give without expecting something in return, something is going to reciprocate. And that is my takeaway for you guys is give your time, give your money, give something of importance, an act of service, words of admiration or affirmation for other men out there, or women and children as well, and some level of encouragement. If you can give and share and give and share that treasure, you're going to get something magic back to you.
Yeah, absolutely amazing that you're bringing that up. Let me grab something real quick. And the reason why I wanted to grab this was because just this morning in this book that I'm reading that my wife got me. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it.
Right? Because I'm not seeing my video. God's Wisdom for Navigating Life. I'm not a really religious man, but I am a spiritual man. And one of the things that we were talking about, that you're talking about right now, giving of time, talents, and treasure. The passage that I just read this morning, there's 1 page per day for the whole year to read. And it's about wisdom. And that is to go just one step further than what you just said on that is it is unjust to not give of your time, talents, and treasures when you know that your neighbor is in need. It's unjust. So it takes it just even that little step further that you got to, it's more than just making a decision of seeking out those people that are in need for times, talents, or treasures. But it's unjust to know that the individual needs it and you not give it at that point in time. Not like, well, wait till next week, I'll take some time to share that with you.
I was called out in front of an audience of about 70 or 80 multimillionaire real estate investors, and in front of this entire group, I was called out. And the facilitator of this event accused me of being greedy with my knowledge and with my time. And it was done in a loving way, but it prompted me to really think about, holy crap, I sometimes think about what gifts and knowledge, time, treasure, talents that I have, and minimize those. And one of the things that we don't take into consideration too often, maybe we should, is there's benefit for somebody somewhere. Like, we're all in various stages of life. We're in different levels of where we are in our mastery of different subjects and skills and talents, etc. And there's always somebody that has a benefit from something that you have to offer. Mm-hmm. And if you're so greedy with your own time, talent, and treasure to not give any of that, then absolutely, that is a huge injustice. And that is not what being a legend is all about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, admittedly, it gets tougher and tougher the more people like you and I get our voices out there, get our faces out there. I must get at least 20 messages on Facebook every single day. And some of them are just connecting. Some of them just say, hey, I love what you're doing. I dig it. Many of them are say, hey, check out my Bitcoin program. Or, hey, some of them are like, I'm a prince in Saudi Arabia or something like that, that type of stuff. They're out there too. But some of them are legitimate questions, and they're asking for assistance and help. And I have to admit, I'm at the point to where I really cannot accommodate everybody. I recently had a conversation with, and I want to see what your take is on this personally, on this right here, because I just had a conversation with Dan Miller, the author of 48 Days to the Work You Love. Mm-hmm. And I asked him this question, and he said he basically gives up, how did he exactly? He said basically he gives up he gives up his time like once a month or once a week, where he's just like, oh, look, I got some time right here just for you and I to talk. But then at the same time, he had a guy who was driving in, a truck driver, and said, hey, I can either meet you at the truck stop or I can come to your house. And Dan's like, dude, I just can't do it. I just don't have the time. Because if we did that, my goodness, how would we be able to live our own life of abundance, right?
Well, what I found is when I was doing that, I was taking away from my wife and from my children, and so much so that I could have lost them. And it got to a breaking point. So I really had to just recognize that, my time is the one thing I can never create. I can create more money. I can create other opportunities. There's so much more that I can have control over. I don't have control over stopping and starting time. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, I look at it, pretty similarly. And I try to make as many moments and be in the present with as many people as I can, but I do I'll turn off my phone. I'll turn off, my email, turn off my notifications at specific points, throughout the course of the week, so I can focus and dedicate my time on with my wife and with my children. And, and then, alternatively, they also know there's times that I'm unavailable, for them with work, unless there's an emergency, of course. But I have to be very judicial about my time, and I'm very similar situation as you, Wally. I've been public enough for long enough, and people know enough of my story that it reaches them, and that's a great thing. That's what I want. And there's a lot of things that I can give to folks, in creating, a platform by which I have a community that it's not just me that's giving, but I've also created this community where others are giving. And much like I'm sure, your community does, is, Men of Abundance helping each other as well. And that's kind of where I see the multiplier effect. Like, I might not personally be able to talk to everybody in every situation, but the platform that I'm creating can magnify that, and the content that I create can magnify that. So that's really how I approach it, is just try to be as smart as I can about my time, still be intimate and create those individual present moments with people, but just recognize that we can't be there for everybody all the time.
Right, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. And one of the things I do as well is I batch my time. I don't even get into Facebook messages, or I just have an hour on my calendar. This is the time that I'm going to answer I won't get through all of them, but I'm going to get through as many of them as I can in this in this block of time. And then after that, I'm done, because I'll be there. I could literally be there all day. All right, man. So speaking of that, what habits make the biggest impact in your life?
So my morning routine is super important to me. I've done really marvelous things in my product sales, and things that I've done before, and selling direct to consumers. And I have to have a morning routine. My exercise routine. I have my own grooming routine. I've got for those of you that have seen me, I got a big and groomed beard. And I just like to spend time on myself when I start the day. And I feel that I can be then the most powerful person for everybody around me when I've given myself that time and courtesy to focus on myself, whether it be, shaving and setting up myself in the morning, and doing my trimming and that sort of stuff, going to the gym, getting a hard workout in. Those things are absolutely critical for me from a ritual perspective. And then and doing meditation and being mindful, and trying to take a mindfulness approach to many of the things that I do in life, driving and being present with people, and just focusing on what I'm there for, as opposed to being a blank face and my mind working somewhere else. If I can, going back to that, if I can give myself the time and the intention every morning before I start my day, that's the most important part for me, to be the most effective person I can be for everybody else that are depending on me.
Yeah. And guys, man, this is a trend right here. It doesn't matter necessarily what your routine is, but a morning routine is one of the things that is across the board. Just about every guy that I've talked to has some sort of a morning routine. And I got to tell you, Nate, good looking beard, man.
Thank you.
I've tried a little bit, it bugs me a little bit, but also when I start growing it in, I start kind of looking like Joe Dirt. So I just, I just let it go, man. But leave it to guys like you and Ryan Mickler and a couple of those cool cats out there with those awesome beards.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you recommend that our abundant leaders read or listen to, and why?
I'm a big fan of Dr. Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Great book.
That was a really inspiring book for me a couple of years ago, a year and a half or so ago, where I recognized that I was doing a lot of people pleasing. I was pleasing a lot of people around me, and I had kind of a wimpy approach, I think, to that confidence that we talked about earlier in this interview. Kind of not slipped away, but in different aspects of your life, like confidence is something that you build in context. It could be something around work, it can be in your relationship, it can be around your fitness, or your eating, or a variety of different things. And I think I had really gotten off base with with that level of confidence, and that being true to myself. And in my personal relationship, actually with my wife, and I found that if I was able to like re-adhere to my own boundaries and to my own confidence and my knowledge of knowing that I've been steering this family unit in a particular direction for years, and then as I start to waver a little bit, in those times of waver, that seems to be when the majority of like the frustrations come up and that bubble up in the relationship. And reading through No More Mr. Nice Guy was a really helpful way for me to recognize that men and women have roles, and we have roles that come natural to us. We have some roles that come unnatural to us. And the more that we can learn and recognize what are our natural roles and and getting into and looking at the relationship in a way that fulfills that on both sides. And it's not about one being better than the other, or one being smarter than the other, or even from an equality perspective. Like, men and women are not the same. Like, they can be they can be, beautiful and wonderful and smart and intelligent in different ways, but they're different roles. And, having an open and honest dialogue in your own relationship and taking the lead was the huge piece that I got out of that. It definitely turned around, I think, a real spiraling aspect of my relationship that had come from all of this, me giving time everywhere else, but not to my own family unit, that I had to really circle the wagons and spend time in my family unit and repair some of the damage I'd done by ignoring my children and ignoring my wife. And it was really powerful for me. And I really credit Dr. Glover's book for helping me through that.
Yeah, great book. I've listened to that book. I've got it on audio, and I've listened to it twice. Then I went back and listened to a couple other chapters a couple more times. Guys, if you're going to get that book, and you feel that you might be in that Mr. Nice Guy, that nice guy role, just be prepared for some deep reflection, because as it turns out, the nice guy's not all that nice when it gets down to it. And that's why I'm going to leave it at that, because Dr. Glover certainly explains it much better than I could. For sure. But definitely get that book. I'll have it linked up in the show notes at menofabundance.com as well. Nate, what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance? I
think fear. I think fear and ignorance are the things that hold most people back. There's a reason why the acronym and the word legends and the first letter is learn yourself, is that we I think embody so much fear and regret and concern and worry from the world today, that if we really just sit in silence and consider and learn ourselves and recognize what's true to us, that starting from that with a mentality of abundance and the law of attraction, abundance, whatever the terminology people like to use around it, if you have a core place to start from, and you just live your life as if everything is going to come to you from an abundance mindset, you're going to have a much more rich and enjoyable life than whatever misery you might be sitting in now. And maybe not everybody's in that situation, but if there's anybody listening to this that feels like they're in a bit of a miserable situation, then I would absolutely encourage you to do some deep reflection and use the resources out there that we've talked about in this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear is a common answer. You said ignorance. Elaborate on that a little bit.
So that's really self-ignorance. I think that's the part, going back to legends, is learn yourself. Why it's so important. Mm-hmm. I think people today are so certain about who they are and what's right and what's wrong and that sort of stuff. And I would consider that being uncertain about everything is a much more positive approach to learning oneself and to learning those around you than approaching life with certainty. Question as much as you can, as much as you're comfortable with. Question more than you're comfortable with. Living in that uncomfort zone I've talked about before in some other interviews. For those of you that have listened to me before, live in that uncomfort zone. If you're constantly comfortable, you're not growing. You're not evolving. You need to try things that you're uncomfortable with. Make a list. Make a list of 50 things you're uncomfortable doing. I wouldn't tell anybody that I'm homophobic or that I don't like being around gay guys and gals. But at the same time, I've never gone to a gay rally before until this last year. Mm-hmm. I'd never gone before, and it was uncomfortable for me. But I went, and it's just a bunch of sweet people doing what they feel is absolutely inherent for them, and the abundance of love in that event was super surprising, and it absolutely kind of shook my my thoughts around that, and I was even, and then of course my business mind starts spinning. So at the time we're selling a lot of men's grooming products, and I'm thinking, oh my God, there's guys around here all over the place that this would be a field day for selling men's grooming products and that sort of stuff. So had kind of a took an interesting turn as well. But just try uncomfortable things. And if I think Morgan Spurlock for a while had that show where he would put himself in situations that are or put people together and kind of trade walks of life. Like that sort of stuff is super fascinating to me, because people's their hard, deep rooted boundaries and core beliefs often get challenged, and I think pretty much all of them would say at the end of that type of an experience that they were better off for having confronted something that was so uncomfortable to them, and overcoming that challenge of perception. And that I think would be, a fantastic thing for people to look at on a monthly basis or daily basis as often as you can. Is what's one thing that you're uncomfortable with? Go and try it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even you just mentioning that made a lot of people's hair on the back of their neck stand up for sure. Yeah. I know for sure. So, Nate, what does living a life of abundance mean to you?
So living a life of abundance for me means living a life of abundant love, and constantly imparting that with those around me, my family, my friends, my community, and most importantly, I think even before everyone that's external to me, is abundant love for myself. It's not something that came easy for me, and it's something I think men in particular struggle with. There's a lot of deep-seated and deep-rooted shame, I think, that comes from a number of cultural and conditioning things that people experience in the world today. And loving oneself, I think, is probably the first place that I would start for any type of a life of abundance.
Absolutely. Love it. Absolutely love it. So we're going to close this up, brother. And before we do, what did we not talk about that you want to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation today?
We didn't talk at all about the the community of online entrepreneurs that I represent and that I facilitate. So, for any guys that's out there that is living in the rat race, or you have an online business, or anything that's that's related to product sales online, that's really my mastery. I talk a lot about the psychology and philosophy of living and that sort of stuff as well. Much of that has come from the mastery I've gained in the physical product sales world. So absolutely encourage anybody that is in that space or interested in learning more about that space to come over to AdSUN.net or find me at Nate@AdSUN.net, and you can feel free to inquire. We'll get you pointed in the right direction.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate you sharing that. Guys, take advantage of that. Check it out. I always tell you, go with the group of guys, whatever it is that you're looking for. Make sure you resonate with them. Follow Nate on Facebook, his social media. Send him an email. Connect with him. We're going to have all of that linked up in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about writing all that down. Nate, I greatly appreciate your time, brother. I dig what you got going on. I love your story. Going from building websites, real estate, corporate world, and then into what you're doing with we didn't even get into the beard oils and all the other. You talked a little bit about the grooming and stuff like that. Throw me that stuff too. I'll have all that linked up in the show notes as well. I want to lift that up, and then man, doing what you're doing with your masterminds and with the legends. Absolutely love it, brother. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks for your time today.
All right, man. Aloha. Guys, no legend has ever been a man of inaction. Legends are those who have taken massive action throughout their lives. Now, you may not strive to be a legend for the world to remember, but I would hope you would at least want your family, your kids, your boys, your young ladies to look up to you and admire your actions as a legend within your family and community. Now, go out and live your life of abundance, and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.